Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Bucci. Today I've got another Guild Wars 2 video for you. As you can probably guess, this is going to be a build video. This is going to be a build that I've been using recently in dungeons and for general roaming PvE. I got quite bored of the double dagger build, which I talked about in my last video, which was a leveling build, so designed for survivability, and I wanted to go for something a little bit more punchy with a little bit more attack and just generally more interesting for me. So this build is a Scepter Dagger build, so that means main hand Scepter, offhand Dagger. And essentially, unlike the double dagger build, this means I'm going to be at a bit of range from my enemies, which is quite useful as an Elementalist because you don't really have that much of a damage threshold. Your pain threshold as an Elementalist is pretty low, so it makes sense to take some distance between yourself and your target. So just to start off, I'm going to talk about, obviously, my traits. So I've got 10 points into fire, so this really is just for the might and for the extra damage while attuned to fire. I'm going to explain all of this with the rotation later on, but I just want to go through the traits first. The extra power is good. Flame barrier it's okay, it's not really that important, that's not really what I'm going for. What I'm going for is internal fire, 10% more damage while attuned to fire. So the main fire spike that I'm going to be talking about is going to be 10% more powerful, which is pretty good in itself. Also, you get some extra condition duration, but that's not really that important. Condition duration isn't too important, either is condition damage for this build. Anyway, so now as you can see, I've got 30 points into air magic. This increases my precision by 300 and critical damage by 30%, which is quite significant and it's quite integral to this build. Get Zephyr speed, move 10% faster while tuned to air. That's always nice, but it's not entirely essential, but you get it anyway. Bolt to the heart won't be so useful against regular mobs because once they're down to 33% health, they're probably going to be dying soon. But against bosses, as you'll see later in this video, there will be more use for this, and you get that 20% extra more damage coming in. Electric discharge, it's not that important. It's nice, but you don't really need to worry about that. Arcane lightning, gain 10% more critical hit damage for 15 seconds when you use an arcane skill. As you can see, I've got 2 arcane skills here, so that's pretty nice. And finally you get, here's weak spot, 60% chance to cause vulnerability on critical hits. That's going to come in more important later on as I talk about water magic. And finally we have fresh air, which recharges your air attunement on a critical hit. And personally, I think this is the only Grandmaster trait in air magic which is really worth having, at least for a build oriented like this. 0 points in earth magic, don't need to bother with that. 20 points in water magic. My original rationale was to put 10 in water and 20 in fire, but I realised I was pretty glassy and it wasn't very forgiving, so I decided to put another 10 in water and take it out of fire, because with the gear you won't need as much power as you would if you had 20 points in the fire tree. So got extra healing by 200, so that's going to increase survivability, and another 200 vitality, which increases the health by quite a bit, and it's quite helpful. Soothing mist, regenerate health while tuned to water. That's pretty good for survivability. I don't know how powerful the regeneration is, but it's always welcome. Vital striking, deal extra damage when health is above 90%. That's pretty nice, as provided you are above 90% health, and you should try to be as much as possible. Try not to be too close for too long, just try and make sure you're on as much health as possible, and this will come in useful. Healing ripple, heal nearby allies while tuning to water. Pretty nice, but not essential, but as you can see, you get it anyway. And piercing shards, which means while tuned to water, your spells deal 20% more damage to vulnerable foes. Now this synergizes quite well with weak spot. You're going to be doing quite a lot of critical hits, so the extra vulnerability will tie in quite nicely with piercing shards. And finally you have 10 points in arcane magic. Boon duration by 10%, quite nice. Attunement recharge rate by 20%, also nice. Arcane fury, yeah, that's fine, that's okay. And then elemental attunement, which is pretty cool. The extra boons that you get, especially the might boon when you're moving into fire, that's important for the rotation. And that wraps up the traits. So 10, 30, 0, 20, 10. This is what I would roll with. You could also do 20 in fire, 30 in air, 0 in earth, 10 in water, 10 in arcane if you wanted to be a little bit more adventurous and daring. Or you could probably take out all of the 10 in fire magic and stick it straight into water and max out water if you're really struggling to survive. Now let's talk a little bit about gear. So as you can see, I've got Berserker's armor and Soldier's trinkets. The rationale behind this is the Berserker's armor will give you the damage and precision and the critical damage, whilst the Soldier's trinkets and accessories will give you the power as well as toughness and vitality. For runes and all the extra add-ons and things like that, I use Scholar runes. I haven't actually got 6 yet because I'm still waiting on my last piece of armor. That's pretty decent. Extra power, extra critical damage, pretty integral to this build. And for my accessories, I use Knights jewels, so exquisite emerald jewels. That evens out a little bit. You get extra precision, but you also get toughness, which is quite nice, and you get the power as well. For weapons, I would say always have Bloodlust on. That's pretty much essential for your main hand weapon, and as you can see, it is main hand Scepter, offhand Dagger. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the skills I use in terms of utility and healing. My heal, I use Ether Renewal. This is probably a preference thing. All 3 are more than acceptable for this build. I like Ether Renewal because it does the most healing, and when I'm healing, I'm usually healing up when I'm quite low on health and I want something that does the job right. And even if that takes me out of combat to charge it, that's fine by me. And also as a cure condition, which means you don't have to take any cleansing fire or anything like that. So that's my choice. You're completely free to change that one. That's not integral to the build at all. Then I'm using Arcane Wave. This is part of the might stacking combo, which is very similar to the one that I used in my Dagger build. The damage is nice. The fact that it's a combo finisher, blast, is the most important thing. And because it is an arcane skill, it will always crit. And if you got high crit damage, that's going to make it even more powerful. This is fairly integral to the build. You can switch this out if you want. However, I would suggest not to because it is part of the might stacking. But if you're happy to lose those 3 might stacks, then that's fine, I suppose. Arcane Blast is nice to make sure you proc fresh air. As you know, or you may know, fresh air means that when you crit, your air attunement will recharge instantly, meaning you can go straight back into air, use Ride the Lightning, use your Updraft, use Lightning Strike, use Arc Lightning, any of them, you can go straight back in there. That's just a insurance to make sure it hits and make sure it procs, because that's going to hit and that is going to instantly crit. Same goes for Arcane Wave, but Arcane Blast means you can do it at a distance. It also has 1500 range, which is pretty nice, and the recharge time is only 20 seconds, which is also quite manageable. So it is somewhat spammable, but not, I wouldn't suggest going around spamming it constantly. Use it when you need it, and of course, since it always crits, the critical damage that you should have quite a fair bit of will help. Again, this could be considered a optional utility skill. If there's one that you prefer more, then by all means take it, but I prefer this one. I think of this as fairly arcane-y oriented. It's quite nice in there, it sits well, you can fire it off in the middle of a fight even when you're knocked down, and the crit damage will make it even more powerful. Finally, we have Mist Form. This is preference. This is a survivability thing. If you prefer Lightning Flash, that's fine. If you prefer anything else, that's fine. I would suggest maybe not using Lightning Hammer though, because it doesn't seem to work so well with this build as it would with other builds. And finally, I have my elite skill, and at the moment I'm using Glyph of Elementals. I would also suggest using the Summon 7 series Golem. I would choose Golem over Glyph of Elementals purely because the only elementals that I really use are the fire one and the earth one. The earth one for the big tanking and the fire one for the damage. I occasionally use the frost one as well. For a lot of this build you're going to be sitting in the air attunement, so it isn't that handy, and I don't actually like the air elemental much at all, even though it does stun. So the 7 series Golem is, I would say, preferable. I was using this one because we were in a boss fight in which the air elemental was quite necessary. Conjure Fiery Greatsword shouldn't be something you need. I personally don't like it very much. You can use it if you want, but for the most part you probably won't need it in this build. Everything's recharging fairly quickly and you shouldn't be sitting on cooldowns for too long. And Tornado's kind of not that useful in PvE just yet, so I completely ignore that one. I'm going to skip over to some Citadel Flame footage now, just so you can see how the rotation works. I've explained the traits in probably enough detail. If you want more, please leave a comment. I will make a build like template for you so you can see it, and if you have any more questions about it, please feel free to ask. But now I'm going to show you how the rotation works and why these things are important and how I use this build in dungeons. So stick around for that, and here's something I prepared earlier.
And extract her. Stay close.
Okay, so now we're in Citadel Flame. I'm just going to show a bit of footage. I'm not really going to pay attention to what's actually happening on screen. I'm just going to be talking about what the rotation is for this build. So for the main spike, which I mentioned earlier, this revolves around using Dragon's Tooth, Phoenix, Arcane Blast. So the first thing you want to do is move into your fire attunement, which for me is F1. You may have set up custom controls, but by default it's F1. I like that, it's quite easy for me to get to on my keyboard. Move into fire attunement, press 2, which is Dragon's Tooth, and then 3, which is Phoenix. You have to place Phoenix because it is somewhat of a skill shot in quote marks. But the reason I put Dragon's Tooth down before Phoenix is because Dragon's Tooth is delayed slightly, it floats in the air and then lands. So if you could time those up well, you'll spike them. And then chuck in Arcane Blast just for the extra fun of it and the extra damage, which will immediately let you go back into the air attunement. This is assuming, by the way, that you were in the air attunement before you moved into fire attunement. So to sum that up, from air attunement you press F1, 2, 3 and then 8, which is what it is for me. Depending on where Arcane Blast is on your skill bar, that will vary. So onto the might stacking rotation. This will be the main rotation. You'll want to use this in longer fights, maybe against bosses or just groups of mobs, big groups of mobs, which are going to take a little bit longer to take on. If you're in smaller fights, it's probably not worth doing all of this, so save this for the bigger fights. So the might stacking rotation is as follows. So you want to start off in the air attunement, which by default is F3. You want to press 4, which is Ride the Lightning. This will be a gap closer and it'll do a bit of damage to your enemy. Then you want to move into the fire attunement, which is F1. You want to press 2 for Dragon's Tooth, and then activate Ring of Fire. Ring of Fire, as you know, is your combo field. So you then place Phoenix inside the combo field on an enemy, and that will give you 3 stacks of might, as will Dragon's Tooth when it lands. So you want to quickly move into Earth attunement while you're waiting for Dragon's Tooth to land, so that's F4. You want to hit Earthquake, which is 4, and then you want to press 5, which is Churning Earth. Now while Churning Earth is charging, you want to hit Arcane Wave, which for me is 7. Once that all hits, you should have around 16 stacks of might. 3 for each of the skills, so you're using 5 combo finishes in there, so you get 15, and then an extra 1 for moving into the fire attunement. You get that because of Arcane Attunement. Then you might want to move back into air attunement, pressing 5, which is updraft, to move back away from your enemy nice and quickly, and then just continue with channeling Arc Lightning and spamming Lightning Strike. That's pretty much all there is to it. A couple of general last pointers before I finish up. Once you finish might stacking, get the hell out of there. Go back to channeling Arc Lightning and spamming Lightning Strike. Use your elite skill if you need to. I suggested the summoning ones for the extra output. However, you don't need to use that. If you do need it, use it, but it might not be entirely necessary. Use Mist Form and Lightning Flash if you need them. Just try and keep yourself alive. Switch into your Water Attunement and use your healing skills. There's plenty in there. There are 2 healing skills in your Water Attunement, and you also have extra armor in there. And of course you have your healing skill, which my preference is Ether Renewal. That's me just about done for this video. If you have any comments about this build, any improvements I can make, any suggestions, any comments, any questions about it, leave them in the comment section below, Also, feel free to send me an inbox message if you want to get to me a bit more directly. I can help you with this build, I can help you explain it, and if you have some really urgent improvements for me to do, please send them there. I really want to make this build quite good. I really do enjoy using it, and I want to make it as optimal as possible. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, it really helps me out, and if you want to see more videos like this one, please subscribe. If you guys want, I can put up a template for this build as well. Just, you know, hit me up, whatever you need, I can try and do it for you guys. So thanks a lot everyone, see you later.